Lights, camera, action. I'm Greydon, and I got a special guest with me today. And I'm your guide through the deep dive in the world of movies right here on the Directors Club, cut exclusively on the Fanatics Network. As you can see down below, right there's the awesome logo. Right there's where you can find us. There's a website, thefanent.com. We have awesome articles and everything else under the sun for all your fandoms right there. We got our Instagram right there, the Director's Cut TFN Twitter page. So if you want to talk movies, that's the one to do it right there. Our YouTube, our Facebook, and our Twitch channel. So you guys can catch us wherever you want to catch our content. And as always, we are the Fanatics Network, and we're your hub for all your fandoms. Tonight, remember to hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, hit that thumbs up, and hit the bell notification for whenever we post a video. Without further ado, let's dive in. As you guys can see right over there, I'm not pointing at my wife, I'm pointing at the poster right there. We're talking Frankenstein tonight. We're talking the original 1931 Frankenstein starring Boris Karloff. So I'm just going to turn that on just a little bit because I'm getting a little bit of shadow. But before we get into this, like always, I like going into the comment section. So let's see who's here tonight joining us. Let's see. What's good, director? Hey, Nick. Thanks for everything. Love that new countdown in here, man. How you doing tonight, man? Justin, what's up, man? I'm doing well, man. How are you? Oh, and I forgot to mention this tonight. I'm joined by my wife, Chris, tonight. Hey, guys. We're talking we're talking Frankenstein. Why did I bring Chris here? Because this is our type of horror movies that we like watching. We like the entire Universal classic monster films. That's what these are. These are Universal monster films because they were originally done by Universal Pictures. We'll get into a little bit more of that in a little bit. So you see here, this is what we like to watch during this spooky season. And you know what's so spooky about this season? How scary pumpkin spice really is. Should have. Should have. But you know what's really scary? How scary pumpkin spice truly is. It's not made with real pumpkins or real spice. And it doesn't sing, "Do you want to be my lover?" Kind of like all the other Spice Girls. So where's pumpkin spice? If it's a real spice, where's pumpkin spice and all that? I digress. That's an argument for another night and another show. Not here tonight. So, oh, Bakley's here with Cage IQ. Check out his show where he gives you who you need to bet on every UFC fight. So check that out. Happy early Halloween. Have a good show. Thanks, man. I can't wait for next week's show because next week's show is gonna be a good one. It's Halloween night. I'm gonna be dressing up. So don't want to miss my costume. So stay tuned for that. But anyways, we're talking Frankenstein. So, Chris, when was the first time you ever saw this movie? Do you remember?
Maybe my late 20s. That's when I really started getting into the classic monster madness.
Well, as you know, and most everyone here knows, I'm into classics. I enjoy the classic films. It's just something about them, and something like this and all these monster movies. You know me and my practical effects. You know how much I like those. So, in other words, me doing that and liking this movie is actually pretty good for me because I enjoy practical effects and the makeup, everything that they do that was practical because they had no computers back then to do all the CGI stuff. So, okay, let's get into our synopsis right now. This iconic horror film follows the obsessed scientist, Dr. Henry Frankenstein. Yes, Frankenstein, Henry Frankenstein, not Victor, like it is in the book, as he attempts to create a life by assembling a creature from body parts of the deceased. Ooh. Aided by his loyal, misshapen assistant Fritz, instead of Igor, that was changed later on. Frankenstein succeeds in animating his monster, but it escapes into the countryside and begins to wreak havoc. Frankenstein searches for the elusive being and eventually must confront his tormented creation. All right, so we start in the Bulgarian Alps, where we have Henry. Like I said in the book, it was Victor, not Henry. and his assistant Fritz, a hunchback. And it's not Igor, and we don't get Abby Normal in here at all either. Or putting on the Ritz guys, putting it's Frankenstein. No, it's Van Helsing. That's the thing. A piece together a human body. Some of the parts are from freshly buried bodies, and some bodies of recently hanged criminals. This is not anything weird during that time frame because when the book was actually written, there were people who would harvest organs from the recently deceased and hanging victims and hanging criminals, not because for to make monsters like this, but to help with surgeries and transplants, stuff like that. This was early medical practices, kind of like this. That's why Henry is a mad scientist, but he's also a doctor because of stuff like this. In a laboratory where he's built inside a watchtower, Henry desires to create a human, giving this body life through electrical devices. He still needs a brain for his creation. At a nearby school, Henry's former teacher, Dr. Waldman, shows his class a brain of an average human being and the corrupt brain of a criminal for comparison. Henry sets Fritz, and they show you like the actual brain in a jar. It's actually pretty cool. It's like the one brain's bigger, the other one's smaller, and like all the little nodes in it are like tighter around the corrupted one as compared to the healthy one. It's actually pretty interesting to watch, say the least. Henry sends Fritz to steal the healthy brain from Waldman's class, but Fritz accidentally damages it, so he brings Henry the corrupt brain. So it's kind of like in Young Frankenstein, where he drops it, and he ends up having to give the Abby normal brain or the abnormal brain, but he calls it Abby normal. So Henry's fiancée, Elizabeth, speaks with her friend Victor about the scientist's peculiar actions in seclusion. Elizabeth and Victor ask Waldman to help understanding Henry's behavior. Waldman reveals that he's aware Henry wishes to create life. See, he wants to create life because bringing something back from the dead is something worth being noted for. And that's what Henry here wants. He wants to be noted for something. Concern for Henry. They arrive at the lab just as he makes his final preparations, the lifeless body on an operating table. As the storm rages, Henry invites Elizabeth and the others to watch. Henry and Fritz raise the operating table towards the opening and the top of the tower. The creature and Henry's equipment are exposed to the lightning storm and empowered, bringing the creature to life. Played here by the awesome Boris Karloff, right there, Boris Karloff, Frankenstein's monster. Because honestly, the movie called Frankenstein is actually more about the doctor than it is the monster, because the monster doesn't have a name; it's just Frankenstein's monster. But he's become Frankenstein. It's kind of like in the first Friday the 13th movie, where we call the character Jason when it was really his mother in it. So, I mean, it's like calling a character, it's like calling the Invisible Man something different, calling him no nose or no face because he's invisible. It's kind of something weird along those lines. Despite his grotesque form, I mean, yeah, he has a flat top because of the brain and everything. Seems to be an innocent childlike creation. Henry welcomes it into his laboratory and asks it to sit, which it does. He opens the roof, causing the monster to reach out towards the sunlight. Fritz enters with a flaming torch, which frightens the monster. Its fright is mistaken by Henry and Waldman for attempt to attack them, and it is chained in a dungeon where Fritz antagonizes it with a torch. Hearing Fritz screaming in the dungeon, Henry and Waldman run down, finding that the monster has forcibly hung Fritz. The monster lunges at the two, but they lock the monster inside. Realizing the monster must be destroyed, Henry prepares an injection of a powerful drug, and the two conspire to release the monster and inject as it attacks. When the door is unlocked and the monster lunges at Henry and Waldman, and at Henry, as Waldman injects a drug into the monster's back, the monster falls to the floor unconscious. So right here we have the guys battling the monster, battling Boris Karloff, who in himself is like 6'6". So he is a tall man to begin with.
Without the bench.
Yeah, without the shoes and everything. Here he is doing this. You know that this role was almost went to Bela Lugosi. Little history fact there for you that Bela Lugosi almost played Frankenstein's monster in this movie.
That I already know.
Yeah. Yeah. That he was about ready to play Frankenstein's monster. And the whole thing was that Bela Lugosi's career was on a sudden downward spiral. And then all of a sudden he played Dracula, and that made Universal a lot of money. So back then they had contracts where the actor would appear several times for the same company. And so they would end up going and doing stuff like that. But he felt it wasn't a fit because he wasn't tall enough to, or he wasn't tall enough and didn't have broad enough shoulders to make this monster look massive compared to everyone else. So they offered him the role of Fritz. He didn't want Fritz. He wanted the monster. Yeah, and
He's known for being a monster.
yeah, he is Dracula, obviously his best one. But he goes on later to star in Son of Dracula, where he does play like Igor, which is hilarious in it. He also plays in Frankenstein in another movie. I forget which one. I think it's House of Frankenstein that he plays it in. So yeah, so he goes on, eventually becomes the Frankenstein monster as we know him. Henry collapses from exhaustion, and Elizabeth and Henry's father take him home. Henry is worried about the monster, but Waldman reassures him that he will destroy it. While Henry is at home, recovered and preparing for his wedding to Elizabeth, Waldman examines the monster, and he prepares to vivisect it or dissect it. The monster strangles him. It escapes from the tower and wanders through the landscape, encountering a farmer's young daughter, Maria. This is probably one of the most touching scenes in this entire movie. She's picking flowers, and she offers him one. And, well, no, he's skipping stones first. Yeah, he's skipping stones, and he tries it, doesn't work. And then all of a sudden, it's like she throws something into the water. He picks her up and throws her in. She can't swim. She drowns. But their interaction before she drowns was very touching, and you see his childlike nature come out. She asks him to play a game in which they toss flowers into the lake. The monster enjoys the game, but when he runs out of flowers, he throws Maria into the lake, inadvertently drowning her. With preparations for the wedding completed, Henry is happy with Elizabeth. They are to marry as soon as Waldman arrives. Victor rushes in, saying that Waldman has been found strangled. Henry suspects the monster. The monster enters Elizabeth's room, causing her to scream. When the searchers arrive, they find Elizabeth in shock, then unconscious. The monster has escaped. So this monster's running around this town. Maria's father arrives, carrying his drowned daughter's body. He says she was murdered, and the villagers from a lynch mob come to capture the monster. Yeah, he says she was murdered. It was accidental drowning. She couldn't swim as he threw her in there. The monster knocks Henry unconscious. The monster knocks Henry unconscious and carries him to an old windmill. The peasants hear the creature carrying Henry, and find it climbing to the top, dragging Henry with it. The monster hurls the scientist to the ground. His fall is broken by wooden blades of a windmill. I don't know if that's actually breaking a fall, people. I honestly don't know if that's breaking a fall. I mean, you're falling on wood. There's no way that's breaking a fall. It's just one of those things that it's pretty much just crazy like that. That broke his fall. Like there's nothing there soft to break your fall. You're falling on wood. It's going to hurt. The peasants hear the creature carrying Henry and find it climbing to. He throws him to the ground. Blades of the windmill saving his life. Some of the villagers bring him a home while the rest of the mob set the windmill ablaze. And this is where one of the monster gets trapped. He's screaming for his life, can't get out. He's a child. He is in childlike nature, and doesn't understand what's going on. As he's screaming, the monster's dead. Inside with nowhere to escape. The windmill sets ablaze. We see the windmill blaze, and they actually built the windmill just to set on fire for this movie, which I find amazing. That the fire we see there is actually truly fire. Is actually truly not just a set piece that they made to set on fire. They actually were in a village and set a windmill on fire. At Castle Frankenstein, Henry's father celebrates the wedding of his recovered son with a toast to a future grandchild. So one of the last scenes we see in here is that very iconic of that windmill burning. And yes, it's a very iconic scene. Like I said, everything in here was practical effects. They filmed by a lake. They filmed in a village. They burned down a real working windmill. They even the monsters stuff was real. All the makeup was real. All the electrical stuff that he used was real. Like it actually all the sparks and all the electrical currents were actually going through everything and stuff like that. And it was one of those things that it was crazy like that. And when he raises it, that platform really raised up, and well, it happened to be on the storm was real that night. So there was a lightning storm that night by happenstance.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. They filmed it when they filmed it. It was actually going to be a lightning storm, but the forecast wasn't calling for one, and so at that time they didn't have the type of technology we have to determine the weather. So it's so an actually lightning storm happened, but Boris Karloff wasn't on the platform. They only showed him when it was raising, and when it gets very high up, you don't see him anymore because he was on the platform. And so when it got shocked, it was just the platform getting struck. So it didn't really hurt anyone or anything like that. The brains that were used in the classroom scene were actually real, but they
That's
were
gross.
but they weren't used as a corrupted one. Well, back then they would use real brains, like how we would use the fake
Yeah.
plastic ones to do class work. That's nothing real.
No, back in the day, you
Yeah,
used a real frog for
yeah, yeah. You
dissection.
use a real frog for dissection, so that's one of those things that it was something real that they used, and no one thought anything of it. So with this movie, this is a classic Halloween film. It's shown every year. I know Svengoolie at least shows it once every Halloween in the month of October. Everywhere plays it. Like there's small theaters around that play these classic films. You can buy these at Walmart. You can buy all 35
Which we
Universal,
are looking into.
which yeah, all 35 classic films of this franchise, including the three with Abbott and Costello. So who? I mean, those are crazy ones there. So without further ado, comes time for that part of the show where I determine if this is just too sweet, or if it's just too sweet, can't be beat, or if it's too sour, don't even bother. It's that point right now. Yeah, that's right. Is it too sweet? Is it too sour? Let's see. That's right. It's too sweet. It can't be beat. So here's what I want you guys to do: put them up, bring them to the screen. Boom! Right there. It's just too sweet. It can't be beat. So I want to thank you all for watching and diving into the deep cuts of films with me. Right here on the Director's Cup, right here on the Fanatics Network. Check down below. You'll see all of our social media stuff for the Fanatics Network down below, as and YouTube as well as mine. You can check me out at Binbuster, where I do a lot of movie talk, more so physical media stuff. So if that interests you, check out my channel too. That's also down in the description. And remember, until next time, there's more to movies than what we see on screen. I'm Greydon. I'll be your guide through the films and their history right here on the Director's Cut.